At November Full Council, Councillor David Van Day submitted a petition with over 230 signatures calling for the B1335 or Aveley bypass to be renamed in honour of the late Corporal Nicky Mason. I'm sure I do not need to explain to anyone here who Nicky Mason was or the sacrifice that he made. However, as explained by Councillor Van Day when he spoke passionately to his petition, Lance Corporal Mason was serving in Afghanistan with the 2nd Battalion, the Parachute Regiment, when he was killed in an explosion in September 2008. He was 26. As a lifelong Aveley resident, I knew of Nicky Mason, albeit not closely. I can say with certainty that his loss was sorely felt by the tight-knit Aveley community with whom he was very popular. Of course, his death was felt much more painfully by his family, including his father Dennis and brother Lee, who are both here tonight and have done so much to support ex-service people and keep Nicky's memory alive. I'm informed that they fully support the call to rename the Aveley bypass as proposed. The public outpouring of support for Councillor Van Day's petition is evidence that time has not erased the sense of loss. Since its submission, the petition has continued to grow and has attracted considerably more signatures, as I understand. Although I've referenced the overwhelming public support for the move, the report rightfully highlights that an objection to renaming the Aveley bypass was received from one of the local community forums. Leader, in my view as portfolio holder, it is quite clear that the objection is not in any way shared by the community which the forum claims to speak for, nor by the three Conservative Aveley councillors who are directly elected to represent residents. It should also be said that the longer established Aveley forum, chaired for many years by Mr Alan Field, who is also here tonight, he's also here tonight, and is himself a stalwart of the Aveley community, has in fact approached the council in past years with a desire to rename a road or area after Corporal Mason. In my opinion, the hundreds of names added to the petition far outweighs the sole objection of the forum and the small number of people associated with it. Cabinet will of course need to evaluate the objections for itself, but I would urge colleagues to respectfully disagree. The Aveley bypass is the main route through Aveley and is well known to local people. It is a road which would have been known to Nicky Mason and no doubt crossed over by him many times en route to his local secondary school. Lance Corporal Nicky Mason served directly in the fight against Islamic fascism and made the ultimate sacrifice in doing so. Those who fought terrorists overseas did so in order that we at home, including Aveley residents, could live beyond the reach of extremists. It would be a fitting memorial to Lance Corporal Mason if the Aveley bypass were to be renamed after him and bear his name forevermore. And I know it would be a comfort to Mr Mason and his family to see Nicky commemorated in this way. Leader, although this report is born out of tragic circumstances, it is my pleasure to present it to Cabinet and seek approval. If colleagues were minded to agree the recommendation, it will fall to us to agree the precise new name of the road, and I look forward to hearing comments on this as we discuss the item, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Manning. We do have one non-exec member question, and that's from Councillor Van Day. Councillor Van Day, would you like to present your question, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's quite simple, really. It's will the portfolio holder agree to take into consideration Lance Corporal Nicky Mason's father's wish for how the old Aveley bypass will be renamed?
Thank you, Councillor Van Day. Councillor Manning?
Thank you, Leader. I think, the simple answer to that is yes, of course. The very heart of this is, doing what Lance Corporal Nicky Mason's family wants us to do. And I had a brief discussion with Mr Mason earlier this evening, and I think we've come to an understanding that, there's no point in us doing anything he's not comfortable with, so we're more than happy to work with him and make sure that his wishes are accommodated.
Thank you.
That's great, thank you. So before we get into the questions and discussions, perhaps now would be a good time to ask either of Mr Masons if they'd just like to just confirm what version of the road renaming that you would like. Obviously the petition said Lance Corporal Nicky Mason Way. We kind of minded that should be the forefront of that. So
yeah, that would be something like that would be perfect. That's what we went through, and so if it could be that, that'd be ideal.
That's absolutely great. Thank you. It's not really to put you on the spot. It's really you're surviving relatives of. It really does sort of fall for you to have your input which is great. I've put an
It's
arrow
very
in the
important,
version.
Lance Corporate, the main theme, it means so much, basically.
Yeah, he earned that rank, so it should be reflected. It really should. So with that, and thank you very much for that, we'll move on to questions and discussions in relation to the item in front of us. Any questions or discussions? So Councillor Cumming and Councillor Foxall.
It's not really a question, more of a kind of a statement. As the community portfolio holder, I wouldn't say we need to recognise the forum's voice because that's what they're there for, but they are only a part of our community, as you say, Councillor Maley. They're a small percentage, and there's a huge community out there, and we must listen to all parts of the community. So I will always welcome petitions like this that give a voice from another side of the community, and where we may have in the forum a few people sat around a table. When you have a petition and you have over 200-300 signatures on it, then there's your voice. It's not going to bring your son back, and I'm really sorry for that, but this small thing I think we should be doing without even hesitating.
Definitely. Councillor Foxall.
I have a couple of questions really. The first question is obviously about the objection, and why do we have two forums for such a with a community when I always thought that each forum was set up in a specific area. I understand all SIP has got loads of forums. That's because it's got like different communities. It's got different communities, so I understand that. But whenever I worked in Corringham, we had a Corringham thing or a Chapel forum, and I understand that. But why does Aveley and why do we recognise two forums when we should really recognise one forum for Aveley? And the second question is, I think this has been so long I'm speaking to earlier earlier. It's been so long coming to this stage, and then there's been so many blocks. I'd like to apologise on behalf of the council and the cabinet that it took this long to do, and it took us last year to change the rules. And I think the cabinet member were fantastic for that. Where previously you go around and see many a time you see old elected councillors and old MPs across the borough in different names. And I understand that, and it's nice to actually recognise someone who's actually done something well, a very great honour to this country, and move forward with it. So really, it's two questions: why did it take so long? And apologise. Hopefully, it's an apology to the family for this taking so long. And what can we do to make sure that one forum for each community, to make sure there is a single voice?
So if we do the community one first, then Councillor Maley.
It's very difficult, isn't it, when you have a forum, and if that forum within itself doesn't agree, and it kind of, we're all human, and it's a little bit fractured, and officers have been working with the community to try and find a way forward. But this is a prime example of if we had one recognised forum, one voice, then we probably wouldn't be renaming this road, and that doesn't make it right. So I, as portfolio holder, take it on the chin tonight that I will start working with officers again. I know we came away to give some breathing space and for things to calm down, but perhaps now is the time to restart, see what we can do. And that's not a problem, it's just making sure that everybody gets a fair voice.
Can I just come back? The council here is loads of different voices,
Yeah.
but we don't split up into loads of different views.
No.
And we don't run away like that. Our opposition members are still, I'm still a councillor of 1 of 49, regardless of political party they are. And I think the forum should, otherwise the council shouldn't recognise that body. If the government wouldn't recognise us, so we split into loads of different political parties. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And when it's not the forum, and I understand the call now, it's whether the council officers should recognise two forums in one place.
Going forward, from May, this is something that has been voiced.
Thank
We
you.
need to review forums, we need to look at the format, and perhaps now is time for change, because they've been around for a while and the world has changed in the last 3 years, and we need to move forums forward too.
Councillor Maley, would you like to answer the other questions and it taken time?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I think, as I said at the start of my speech, the council's position has always traditionally been that we don't support the renaming of roads or assets after people. That's not something I agree with. And when this paper was presented by me in July, initially the draft was very much to enshrine that, to say the council won't do that. As I said, I disagreed. I worked on renaming that, so we could do things like this. I'm a great believer in naming assets or streets after people. It's a way of injected some civic pride and recognising people who deserve it. So it's only at the point of last summer that we've been able to do this, and that's created a mechanism for people in the community to petition the council, like Councillor Van Day did in his capacity as a local councillor and as a community campaigner as he is. And that's why it's happened, because Councillor Van Day, working with the Mason family, has done what a councillor should do, represent his community rather than just put in objections. It's easy to say what you're against all the time, but here he is actually doing something. And this has come about because of that. So we as a council have enabled people to come forward to do this, and he sees that opportunity, and here we are now. So credit to him, credit to the Mason family, and also to the Aveley community for being the first to do this.
Thank you. Yeah, that's
great. Excellent. I'm just going to touch on one of the points that you made, Councillor Cuban, about petitions. Of course, when you've got a factual petition based on something that the community wants to do,
Absolutely.
rather than stop them from doing something we weren't actually doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to use anything recently, but I will point back to when I first stood for the elections independently in Tilbury, and another local party was going around saying that the council, which they run at the time, was going to shut that down and sign this petition. It's like, well, that's not a real petition, because you've got that in your gift anyway. So when you've got real petitions like this, yes, we should listen to them, where we get petitions that are, I want to say informed, but don't actually cover the truth.
I know
Slightly different.
I know exactly what you mean, because you can have 2,000 signatures, but if those signatures are from people that don't understand the situation correctly, then you would be making a wrong decision maybe. And so it's one of the forms of having a voice, isn't it? It's raising concerns and therefore re-looking and examining what you're doing and make you challenge yourself on decision making. But there are other ways of doing it as well.
But when it's based on fact, even if it's something
absolutely.
we're doing and people don't want that to happen, absolutely right to do so. Indeed. I was just making sure it was. I thought it wasn't back there at Langtown. And when we saw that position, it was like, so we don't lose the theatre and theatre position. Absolutely factually correct. And, right thing. We've had in the past, say the ferry, thousands of people signed from across the world, never even been there. You sort of think, well, that's not really the voice, that's really just
exactly
sort of kind of garner support. Councillor Mogan.
It was just to say, following on from what Councillor Hughton said, the petition in itself I think is very powerful, but it was only part of the picture. Once it went live, if you looked at social media, there was real support from this from the Aveley community. So it struck a chord and people have got behind it. So there was a real desire to see this happen, and it wasn't just a petition.
Yeah, and actually, good mention. I just wrote a word down here and thinking, why did I write that one down? But you're quite right. There's been this hesitance for us to rename after anyone, living or dead, that's got a very large or very close connection with Thurrock. We've all received recently past sort of 2 years, requests to name the new bridges after people, and they all seem very, very reasonable. We've got a process for this now, which is great. But I just thought, thinking my former partner's great aunt lived in Garner Court in Tilbury. It was named after one of the former councillors. Very well slipped in when they built that, and I'm going back 20 odd years now. So it can be done subtly. This actually is the best way to do it open and honestly. So if there's anybody else wish to chip in before we move on to, first of all, what should we be called, because there were options here of Mason Way, Lance Corporal Mason Way, Mason Road, Lance Corporal Mason Road, Mason Avenue, or Lance Corporal Mason Avenue. But the petition did say, as we've discussed with the Masons here, that the petition said Lance Corporal Nicky Mason Way, and that my personal view should be the one that we are having.
I think
Agreed, 100%.
I think the rate must be.
Yeah. So that's one of the easiest decisions. So the recommendation 1.1 was, I don't normally read them out because they are here and it adds very little, but the Cabinet considered renaming the Aveley bypass in honour of Lance Corporal Nicky Mason by agreeing one of the suggested names below. We're not going to take that, we're going to take the name of Lance Corporal Nicky Mason Way. So is that all agreed?
Agreed.
Excellent, that's all agreed.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much. It means a lot.
John Cummings. John Cummings.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We really